So this is the Dell 14.1 inch 5-pound Dell touchscreen 4th generation 4200U Intel iCore 5 processor. This laptop is a little bit it's a little bit heavier than some of the other HPs. It's not as sleek, but I think it's for a reason. It seems a lot more durable. It also has a touchscreen, which is going to add to the profile of the top portion of the screen area by just a little pinch. And then also it has a bigger battery than some of the other HP laptops, for example, or at least by comparison. So you're giving up a little bit of the sleek profile, but in exchange I think you're receiving a bigger battery, a stronger laptop, and obviously a touchscreen in this case. So that's the screen size, 14.1 inches, the weight, again 5 pounds, and the durability to it. We talked about the processor specs. It's a 4th generation processor type, i5. What that means being a 4th generation is by comparison to other laptops that, like for example, 2nd generation laptop that was also a Core i5 might not be able to run some of the same games or some of the same video editing or sound editing or 3D animation software that this laptop can run, because it has a better onboard video card than what they had in previous generations. The other big difference in the fact that it's a 4th generation is that it supports up to 16 gigs of RAM. This particular laptop comes with 8 gigs of RAM, but if you'd like it to be shipped with 16 gigs of RAM, we can do that for you for an additional $60. We can just let us know. We'll change the invoice for you at the end of the auction or whatever it is. But let us know before we ship it, and we can do that for you. So anyway, those are the two main differences between the 4th generation, are the RAM and the video card. There's other differences, of course, but those are the two that really jump off the page for us. So the other things hardware-wise, we're looking at a 500 gig hard drive here. This is a 7200 RPM drive. As I mentioned before, it's 8 gigs of RAM, but we can upgrade it to 16 for an additional $60. As for the ports and condition of this laptop, this one does have, we're going to talk about we're going to actually pick it up and inspect it here and look at the condition, meaning cosmetically. So first I'm going to unplug it and we're going to take a look from the inside. Everything is flawless in here except for one minor thing from the inside, at least, and that's right here. There's a nick of plastic that's missing, and this is right near where the RJ45, or also known as the wired internet, where you would actually plug in your network cable. The little piece of plastic is missing here. It does not affect the functionality of the port. The network cable still stays in place when you plug it in, and other than that, we have cosmetic issue on this side, number 2, and I have to get it in the light just right. You can see there's discoloration to the plastic on the face of the DVD burner that is different than the rest of the laptop. That is because this is a refurbished laptop where we took this faceplate off of a different DVD burner that was also from this type of Dell that had just different discoloration than the rest of the unit. So that looks visually different, but this is works flawlessly. It has the face, it stays, it does everything it's supposed to do, it ejects properly, and it's flush to the rest of the unit because it's built for this unit. So that is a cosmetic flaw. And then the other one that this is more significant is to the outside top of the laptop. And if we look at the surface, you can see, if I get it in the light just right there, a lot of little dings in that surface. And as it catches the light, you can see them. And they're not very deep, but right, this is probably the most significant one, and it's right in the glare. So they're here, there's a few here, and then on the front of it right here, and I have to not catch the glare for this, there's just a little scratch in the surface here. And again, it's not a deep scratch, but there's a scratch there, right there. And it doesn't affect the functionality at all. The laptop itself is excellent. So other than that, the bottom of the laptop is flawless. The screen itself is flawless. All the keys are there. Everything functions properly. It'll be ready to work for you right out of the box. Let's look at the ports. So I'm going to start with the weird, obscure one because this one is really easy to overlook, and I'm going to get it right up close in the camera. This is the SD card reader spot, and that's actually right in the front of the laptop. The other ports are on this side near we have the power input, the ventilation. This is an HDMI input, or I'm sorry, output for if you wanted to plug this laptop into a large screen TV to play a movie or something, or Netflix, or if you were staying at a hotel and you wanted to plug in your Netflix to the hotel TV, this would be the cable you would use. Again, the RJ45 or wired network cable that we mentioned before, where there's a nick of plastic missing. This laptop also has outstanding wireless internet, but that's the port for wired internet. Here we have two USB ports. I'm using one of them right now for a keyboard and mouse that I plugged in, and then a headphone microphone jack. On the other side is the DVD burner that we mentioned, and again another USB port. So there's 3 USB ports in total. There are no ports on the back. There is a web camera up here. It's hard to see on the screen. There's a webcam right there. And again, this is a touch screen, so things can be done just simply by tapping. And that is extremely cool to me. It's one of the first that I've messed with, but I really like it. In fact, don't buy this laptop. Let me have a chance to play with it a little bit more. I'm enjoying the features here of the touchscreen. It also is running on Windows 10, which we'll talk about in a moment, and that means it has Cortana. So I can do things like say, hey Cortana, tell me a joke.
What did the fisherman say to the magician? Pick a card, any card.
So Cortana is excellent for telling jokes and facts, but she's actually a virtual assistant that is voice activated, and we'll talk more about her in a moment here. But so the ports and the condition were the last thing we talked about. Also, we need to mention the battery. The battery on this laptop is outstanding. It currently lasts and was tested for up to 6 hours of use. I think they were shipped, this is a used laptop by the way, obviously by the cosmetic condition. I believe they were shipped with 8 or 9 hours of battery time. This one still supports up to 6 hours. Of course you could replace that battery and have it support up to 8 or 9, or have both. Keep that second one as a standby for when you travel. So that's the condition, the ports, and the battery. Moving on, the software. As I mentioned, this has Windows 10, which means a couple new things are included with Windows 10 that you might not be familiar with. Cortana is one of them. Cortana, tell me a fact about animals. Hey Cortana, tell me a fact about animals.
The sea bunny is actually a type of sea slug, not a cute little mammal that hops around and eats grass.
Hey Cortana, open Photoshop.
Which one? 1 Adobe Photoshop CS6, 64-bit, or 2 Adobe Photoshop CS6?
64-bit.
Which one? 1 Adobe Photoshop CS6, 64-bit, or 2 Adobe Photoshop CS6?
1 64-bit Adobe Photoshop.
Okay, starting Adobe Photoshop CS6, 64-bit.
So Cortana can do other things like schedule appointments, she can contact your friends, she can do reminders for you, she can check certain events or types of news. Hey Cortana, show me political news. Cortana can check for recipes.
Here's the latest in political news.
She can set reminders.
The Washington Post is
she can
Trump invites Russia
track
to meddle in the US
packages, believe it or
presidential
not.
race with Clinton's emails.
So Cortana can do things like checking packages, and for some reason Photoshop didn't open in the middle of this. Let's check that again. Anyway, she works as a virtual assistant, and she can even do things like tracking packages, believe it or not, which was surprising to me that my transactions online, when they had a tracking number, were picked up by Cortana, and I could add them into the tracking and ask her when my package would be here, and she could answer with the date based on a quick lookup to USPS. So there's plenty of better videos out there about Cortana, but I just want to mention that as one of the new features that you might not be familiar with. That's really interesting to me as a way to navigate the computer. So there's Cortana. The other new feature that's impressive is the Windows Store, which works just like the Macintosh store that we were all familiar with. Only this will include everything from movies to games to from small applications like we're used to seeing, but also larger applications of software will be available through these methods as well. So this is a new feature to Windows 10. Everything else is going to be pretty common and familiar to you, whether you're coming from Windows 7 or coming from Windows 8 environment. Windows 10 is not bad at all. It's pretty friendly, and Cortana is actually a lot of fun. She can tell you also about traffic, weather, stocks, whatever information you basically set her up to talk about in the settings, which you can learn about from someone else's video. But I'll leave a link to you as far as how to set up Cortana on the desktop, so you can do that right out of the box when you get it home, because it is one of the cool features. That, and of course, we have to talk more about how this is a touchscreen, so we can simply navigate things by tapping instead. And there's big differences now in this particular laptop from others that I found very interesting because of how you navigate in certain software. So Photoshop, for example, was a lot of fun for me to be able to select my icons to between the eyedropper tool, the paint bucket tool, or to crop and select that everything could be done by touch, and then I could still switch back and forth to the mouse or even the touchpad on the laptop itself. I typically use a wireless mouse though, with whatever I'm using at the time. So not all features support it. I also tested it with a lot of the games, which were interesting. So if I go into our games menu, certain games have built-in touch support. For example, Civilization had built-in touch support, and it actually has two different start executable files depending on whether or not you want to use the old school method with a mouse or use the touch support. And I didn't really get a chance yet to play around with the touch support because some of the commands were tricky. Like they would have 3-finger swipes and rotational things that meant something different than what the traditional mouse commands worked, how they worked in my mind, I guess, versus how they might work if I had some training or practice. So the opposite is true with all first-person point of view games that I tested, at least, where if I played a game like Mafia 2 or Transformers or Grand Theft Auto that was played in first person, or Portal 2, or even Skyrim, that the movements, I could not move my character around by touching the screen, where other games it worked absolutely like I would imagine it to, such as Angry Birds or Civilization, or the games that weren't in a first person perspective. So if I was looking from an aerial perspective and I touched an icon or moved the mouse around, everything worked great. One of my favorite ones was actually Civilization 5 for that very reason. But anyway, moving on from the software, and the fact that the touch screen is one of the more unique features that we have to discuss about this. Another game that worked that way was called This War of Mine, and I liked that a lot because there were multiple characters on the screen and I could easily touch the character, then touch the action that I wanted them to do, versus only having one mouse that I'd have to move and drag all around the screen. I felt like that game must have been designed almost for a touch interface primarily, and then secondarily for a mouse interface. But I think more software in the future will be created for touch-based laptops or touch-based Surface pads, because that's going to be kind of a subgenre of laptops going into the future. At least that's my take on things. I could be wrong. It might be Cortana. Hey Cortana, sing me a song.
Here's one I know. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never thought upon?
So anyway, Cortana is she's fun, but she could be more effective if you get to understand her better, and I don't yet. But I was impressed. Hey Cortana. Hey Cortana. Set a reminder.
Sure. What do you want to be reminded about?
I need to be reminded to eat dinner.
When should I remind you?
7:20 p.m. today.
Okay, I can remind you I need to be reminded to eat dinner. At 10:20 p.m. today. Sound good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll remind you. You can also see it in your reminders list anytime.
Hey Cortana, open Edge.
Okay,
Edge is the new
opening
browser for
Microsoft
Windows 10.
Edge.
So Edge is the new browser for Windows 10, and Cortana can do things in here, which she does by default. If I ask her a question she doesn't know the answer to. Hey Cortana, tell me a fact about animals.
The eye of a giant squid can be as large as a human head.
Hey Cortana, who is your daddy?
Technically speaking, that'd be Bill Gates. No big deal.
So Cortana's a lot of fun. She can also tell you the weather, traffic conditions if you tell her where you work at or where you live and give her these coordinates. So these things are kind of important into setting up Windows 10. When you set up your user account and your email, it actually all ties in together, so that she'll check your email for tracking numbers for packages, and then meanwhile she knows where you live and where you work to be able to tell you what the weather conditions are or the traffic conditions en route. And then furthermore, she could plug in your contacts and your schedule and calendar and tie your entire life in together for you. And then the next thing that is integrated into this that I noticed through testing multiple laptops especially was as I took my personal profile from one laptop to the next, it carried along all of my schedules, reminders, updates, traffic conditions, where I live, where I work, with me from one device to another. So what that means to me is going forward with cell phones that are created under the same platform or Windows type devices, Windows 10 Lite, whatever it may be, is we're going to be able to open this on our laptop and on our cell phones and then on our touchpads, and it's going to carry our profile with us and our purchases with us throughout all these devices that we might use in our home. So moving on, software that we tested, because this is a fourth generation iCore 5 laptop and it has a lot more power. We tested some pretty hardcore applications, including a lot of video editing, sound editing. In fact, we tried multiple video editing platforms and even some 3D stuff like Maya and AutoCAD. With the games, we were able to take it quite a bit further than we typically do with like a second generation laptop because there's better 3D support. Here's This War of Mine, the game that I was talking about earlier. Because of the touch support, games like this are a totally unique experience. I played this game first on a regular computer. I enjoyed it. And then later on, when I received this laptop to refurbish, I realized that the touch support was almost seemed to be designed for games like this and Civilization, where there was an aerial view and multiple units that you could select easy. And the idea is, gosh, if I only had more than one mouse pointer, this could happen faster. Well, it does, because now you can tap to do whatever you're going to do. But likewise, this is true even in Microsoft Office. If I just want to simply hit the bold button, I can reach up and touch. Or if I'm in my browser, I can simply touch the icon for the next page that I want to view, or to open the news article that I'm trying to read by touching the screen. And for those people who like to touch the screen for years, even when they weren't supposed to, now you finally can, and it has a reason. And if you touch the screen and the image that you like, it's going to enlarge it or change it. If you're in Photoshop and you touch it and rotate it, it will actually rotate your image based on your touches, and I think that's pretty cool. So same with games like this, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters in the game. I can touch each of them and send them to a different direction to perform different tasks entirely. And I don't even have to touch the keyboard anymore. But I can also change. It's interesting to me to see so many different types of interface now, where we have the touchpad, the external wireless mouse and keyboard in this case, the keyboard itself, the touch screen, and now with Cortana we even have voice control, and she can tell us jokes and sing us songs and perform meaningless tasks for the most part, but hopefully she'll get better as time goes on. So there's the quick review on how the touchscreen works, the best I can do in just a couple minutes. That's the condition of the laptop. Again, this is the 4th generation. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM, but it can handle up to 16. If you want it ships it with 16 gigs of RAM, let us know, and we'll add $60 to your shipping invoice, or I'm sorry, to your invoice before shipping. It is fully updated and tested and ready to use right out of the box. CDs and manuals are not included, but it does include a 14-day return for any reason. We'll ship to the US and Canada with insurance tracking. And that is about all. Good luck, happy bidding, thanks for watching.